Alright, and welcome back to the YouTube. Solid day, 4-1. Manhattan, again, I think they've officially entered the ban list for me. I had a model to win this game by 8. They lose outright again. I think last time I bet them, they played against Siena, also as a short favorite, and they went to overtime and still lost by 8. So this team just cannot be trusted as short home favorites. The Elon game, I don't know if anyone was watching it, but probably the luckiest cover I've ever had. They did go into half up 13 or up 12, and I felt pretty good about it. But Monmouth came all the way back to tie it, and then Elon went on a little run in the last 3 minutes to the point where they were up, I think, 7 points. And then with 3 seconds left, Monmouth gets 2 technical fouls on the foul, so they get 6 free throws for Elon, and they end up winning this game by 12. So, you know, sometimes some luck goes our way. I'm really happy about that one. Iona, they dominated the first half, kind of let up again in the second, and then they kind of came back and won. In the end, Manhattan, we went over that. Middle Tennessee, back and forth, but in the end, Middle Tennessee did win. They actually gave up a chance for the other team to bring it to overtime, and Sam Houston, but luckily they missed it. In SIUE, a nice little end game backdoor there. The game was pretty much close the entire time, but they pulled away in the final couple of minutes, as home teams sometimes do. So, solid 4-1. Did get a bit of luck our way, but you know, I'm kind of happy that our luck is kind of bouncing back. So, let's get into the first game. Alright, game number 1, we have Kent State taking on the road to play Ohio. Now, this is an interesting matchup, because of course they're both in Ohio, but I kind of think this works more for Ohio's sake. So obviously Kent State, they are one of the best away teams in the nation, the 8th best team when not playing at home. But you could argue, you know, sometimes that's just, you know, playing in another team's stadium, or arena rather. But you could also argue that maybe when they're playing, you know, in their own home state, they're staying in their own bed, you know, playing in front of, you know, fewer fans, they play better. But some Kent State fans may show up to this game. So I'm starting to think that maybe this is going to lean better to Ohio's advantage, where they're, you know, one of the best home teams in all of college basketball. They're the 22nd best in home court advantage. And I do also think that they're just the better team playing better basketball right now. In the Mid-American, Kent State is slightly above them. They're 12-6 to Ohio's 10-8. But I think Ohio matches up decently well against them. This Ohio team, not necessarily known for their defense, but they are a solid offensive team. And one of the things they do really well is shoot the near basket. They like to live in the paint. They're the 77th best near basket team in the nation, and that's the one thing that Kent State defends the worst. They don't shoot too many mid-range or threes. They do shoot some threes. Kent does defend it pretty well, but I think they were able to adapt here and play more in the paint. And I think they're going to find some success down low. And despite the fact that Kent does not turn over the ball too much, I do think Ohio is going to figure out a way to get them to turn the ball over, because they do play at a significantly faster pace than Kent, and I think that's going to be annoying for this Kent State team, who's going to have this Ohio team running at full pace the entire time. Another big advantage that Ohio has is they're the much better free throw shooting team. They're the 51st best in the nation. They shoot at a 77% clip, and they're definitely going to get some free throws this game. They, in terms of free throw attempts per game, they get 100. They're 190th in the nation, but Kent State fouls a lot. They're 310th in free throws given up. So I think those free points in the back pocket of Ohio are going to be the difference maker here against a Kent State team who typically relies on second chance opportunities to score, and Ohio defends their own boards really well, 77th best in the nation. So if this shitty offense, 252nd in offensive efficiency, isn't getting their buckets to fall, I don't think they're going to get a lot of free points on the boards. So I think Ohio is definitely the better side here, especially in their own home court. Alright, heading into game number 2, we have St. Joseph's at Dayton. Now, this St. Joseph team and Dayton, they're kind of very similar teams. They both like to shoot the 3 ball. That's basically, you know, how they typically enjoy getting all of their points. But I think matchup-wise, this St. Joseph's team that does shoot the 3 arguably better than this Dayton team. Yes, Dayton has you know, a higher 3-point percentage, but I do think that the St. Joe's team does shoot it better in terms of shot quality. And if you look at the matchup, St. Joseph's is playing the 139th best at 3-point percentage in the nation to Dayton's 262nd in 3-point defense. So I think they're going to find some success out deep. And this Dayton team on the other side, Yes, they're the 17th best in 3-point percentage, but on the other side, St. John's is holding teams. St. Joseph's, sorry, is holding teams to 31%. They're the 67th best 3-point defense in the nation. So I do think Dayton's going to have to try to score down low, which they're not nearly as good at. And if they're not scoring, I don't think they're going to find much success at the free throw line because St. Joseph's doesn't really foul much. They're 33rd in the nation in getting at opponents' free throws. So I think Dayton's going to have to find some struggle like they have been lately. But the St. Joe's team, I think, is playing significantly better basketball. If you compare the two teams in their last few games, yes, Dayton is coming off 2 solid victories, but they've been against some pretty mid teams. They beat Loyola Chicago by 2 at home, and they went on the road and beat Duke by 20 in a game where they just shot incredibly well. But before that, they lost 3 games to some pretty questionable teams. George Mason, who's pretty good, but they lost by 8 at home. They should probably win that game. And they lost to Massachusetts by 4 and George Washington by 20. They have not really looked very good this year against any upper competition. They lost to North Carolina, Iowa State. They did beat Marquette at home. It's probably their biggest win this year, except for maybe the Connecticut one. But that was in a neutral court setting, and that UConn had probably the worst tournament of their entire franchise, university franchise. Like, they were just terrible, so I don't really respect that win too much. But the St. Joseph's team, yeah, they've lost to better teams as well, but they typically keep it pretty close. Against VCU, a team that I think is better than Dayton, they only lost by 9 at home. So I think this Dayton's struggles from 3 are going to be the difference here. If you compare how these two teams have been playing, this is a St. Joseph's team that plays really well on the road. And yes, the Dayton team has been playing slightly better at home, but they don't really have a significant home advantage. Other teams have been playing well when they come to their stadium. So it's kind of a balance where, yes, Dayton does play better, but it seems that other teams also play better there too. So I think this number is a little bit too big at 6.5. I think Dayton's getting a bit of respect because it looks like they're getting back into form. But yeah, I'm not buying it yet. St. Joe's is a decent road team. They're 2-2. Dayton is 5-6 as home team against the spread. Yeah. Plus, a big thing that I even forgot to mention when I was doing my analysis, I forgot that there's a good chance that Zed Key is probably still out for this game. Same with Posh Alexander. Doesn't really matter as much, but Zed Key, he's one of their main offensive guys. And he's still questionable to play. And even if he does play, who knows? Back injuries are not easy to recover from, so he may be limited. I think that's a big missing piece for them as well. He's one of their best perimeter defenders, and without him, I think their 3-point defense is actually even worse. So, yeah, give me St. Joseph's to cover this number. I think they have a chance to win outright. But yeah, that's game number 2. All right, heading into game number 3, we have St. Bonnie's heading on the road to VCU. Now, I don't really love this game. I'm going to be honest. I think everything is pointing towards VCU covering, and that is why I want to take St. Bonaventure. These teams are going in completely different directions. This VCU team is rolling. The St. Bonnie's team has lost 4 of the last 5 after winning 11-1 to start the year. But I just think that VCU is not necessarily that much better of a team. Like, these two teams are not that far apart in the Atlantic 10. VCU is just slightly ahead of them. And St. Bonaventure is the 80th best offensive efficiency. VCU is the 85th best in offensive efficiency. So St. Bonaventure will have a slight edge offensively. And yes, VCU is one of the best defensive teams in the nation. But one of the things that they don't do well is something that Bonnie's does really well, which is get points off steals and second chance opportunities. Those are typically what I would call freer points. And they also get to the line a lot more than this VCU team. St. Bonaventure is the 5th best at not giving free throws to the other team. So I think Bonaventure has 3 ways to get free points this game. It's going to be an extremely slow crawl of a game. So I will kind of like having those points in the back pocket. St. Bonaventure, probably will struggle shooting, but I think because of their advantage on the boards, they're going to find some success. VCU on the other side, I think St. Bonaventure will be able to have some success defending them. They like to shoot threes. And they don't shoot it well. They've been shooting way too well for a team that shoots 258th best in the nation. I think St. Bonaventure will, probably hold them to 30%. And they'll probably find some success on the boards, similar to St. Bonaventure, but 12.5 points. is, I think, too big of a jump to give a team that just beat you. That's like a 14-point swing on a revenge angle. I know it's possible, and it could happen. I'm only going to sprinkle half a unit on this game, but I do think St. Bonaventure, who typically plays better on the road, gets a VCU team that plays worse at home. Momentum, revenge game. I think it goes both ways, but I'm going to take the points. I'm going to go with the model side here, probably the square side, but I think it's just too many points. But VCU could just win this game by 40. I look like an idiot, but I'm going to try St. Bonaventure here on a bounce back spot. All right, game number 4. Another game I hate. Obviously, it's a small slate. I would say if I was just picking games that I love, it would be UCLA and Ohio. Those are my 2 games that I would, if it was like a 100-game slate, I would definitely bet. Those other 3, I'm a bit iffy on, but I'm still betting them at half a unit. Just to put that out there, in case anyone was wondering. If you want to only tail my most confident bets, it's going to be Ohio and UCLA. But this is a matchup where Ohio has historically been really good at home, and I'm not convinced that they're not going to find success against this Penn State team that hasn't really been that good. This is still an Ohio team, an Iowa team, that completely dominated so many good teams at home. Yes, now they're coming off a 3-loss streak. Against some good teams, USC, UCLA, and Minnesota, but they're teams that they probably should have beaten, especially the one at home. Seemed like a great spot on the bounce back, but they beat. If you look at some of the players the teams that they beat at home, they beat Northwestern at home. They beat Washington State at home. More recently, they beat Nebraska by 10 at home, and they beat Indiana by 25 at home. They beat a really good home team, at least compared to how bad they've been on the road. On the other side, Penn State, they finally got their first win after a rough 4-game stretch. They did play some tough teams, but they did lose to an Indiana team at home that an Iowa team just beat by 25. So it does give me some confidence that maybe there is a mismatch here between Iowa and Penn State. That will give Iowa some advantages here. Yes, Penn State just beat Rutgers, but yeah, they not that impressive. They basically just barely covered the spread, so they played at their expectation. And this Rutgers team, we know that they're kind of fraudulent this year, so really not that impressive of a bounce-back win. I still think this Penn State team has their struggles, and this is a pretty long travel spot. This is over 700 miles for Penn State to travel, and the last times they had to travel, similar distances, they've had some bad losses. They lost to Clemson. They got absolutely crushed by Illinois by 40, an Illinois team that just got crushed by Maryland by 20 tonight. They lost to Michigan State by 5, and this is an Iowa team, up until that Minnesota game, has just dominated teams at home. And I think they're going to figure out their offense again. They've obviously been hitting a bit of a wall, but I do think they're just a better team at home. And this Penn State team has also played much better at home than they have on the road. I think this is just a slight mismatch. Iowa has had a slightly harder schedule. They've had less luck in their shot quality, and I think they're going to be able to cover the short spread. I think their coach and their team is motivated to get back in the winning column. This Penn State team is no longer, on this, destiny to get a win. They don't have that monkey on their shoulder anymore, so I don't think they're going to be playing as intense. But I really do like this Iowa team to figure it out at home. We're getting a really good number with them, probably because of recent results, and I'm gonna ride with them. No other particular reason. If you look at their matchups, both these teams are really good offensively. Iowa is ranked 34th in offense efficiency. Penn State is 36th. Penn State does technically have a better defense, but I do think Iowa's going to find some success here getting points off steals. They're going to live in the paint, where they typically love to live. Penn State doesn't defend the paints too well. They're better as they go out towards the perimeter and get worse closer to their own basket. And on the other side, Penn State also is a near basket team, and they're also going to find some success, but they don't shoot it nearly as well as Iowa does near basket. So give me the massive home edge here. I think this is going to be a pretty fast-paced game between two more offensively focused teams. But I think that the difference here is going to be yeah, I think it's going to be Iowa's going to hit that bounce back spot, and they're going to figure out how to score 100 points again. So we Iowa on the short home favorites. It's -2.5. All right, looking at game number 5, we have UCLA heading on the road to play Washington. Now I think we're still getting decent lines here with UCLA because of recent performances. They have been starting to figure out again, but I think this line's a little bit too short. The skill gap between these two teams is still pretty significant. Despite the fact that Washington has played a harder schedule, they tend to not really stick around too much with really great teams. And this is a UCLA team that is pretty solid offensively. They are the 31st in offensive efficiency in the nation to Washington's 161st in offensive efficiency, so it's a massive gap in offense. But UCLA is known as a defensive team, and they also have a big gap on defense. 16th best in defense efficiency to Washington's 79th in defense efficiency. So yes, Washington has played a slightly harder schedule, but I don't think that makes up the gap in these percentages. UCLA, 20th best team in points off steals. I think they're going to get a lot of turnovers from Washington, who turns the ball over 168th most in the nation. They're going to find success pretty much everywhere in offensively except for the three. But UCLA is not really known to be a team that shoots that many threes. But I think that they have a slightly better advantage here. On the other side, this Washington team is going to have probably some headaches here against this really annoying UCLA defense. This Washington team historically likes to shoot mid-range near basket shots. UCLA is the 6th best mid-range defense in the league. They're probably Washington's probably gonna have to shoot only near basket shots, which is the one thing that UCLA doesn't defend that well. But if they don't make their shots, I don't think they're gonna get a lot of boards like they normally do. UCLA is one of the best teams at blocking their boards, and they just strictly won't get a lot of shots off. UCLA is the 2nd best team in field goal attempts per 100 trips up court. So the thing with the shots is the ones you do get up, maybe you'll find some success, but you just won't get a lot of shots off. When you do, they're going to be tough because they're going to play you really hard offensive defense. You're going to get turnovers. They're going to force you to make bad passes. They're going to hold you to the shot clock, make you take low quality shots. That is what UCLA does, and it's what they've done really well. If we're looking at pure regression, Washington is due for the regression is pretty much non-existent in this game. These two teams have kind of played up to their point. But yeah, if you look at recent games, these two teams are immediately going in two different directions. Washington State started out really hot, but they've lost their last 5 games. This UCLA team went on a little bit of a rough stretch where they lost 5 of their last 6, but now they're back. They beat an Iowa team by 24. They beat a really solid Wisconsin team by 2. On the other side, Washington, yes, they played 5 really hard teams, but it's clear that when they can't handle this big step up in competition. They lost to Oregon, a team that I think is fraudulent, by 11. They lost to Purdue by 11. They lost to Michigan by 16. They lost to Michigan State by 34. They lost to Illinois by 4 at home. I just think Washington is not cut out for these massive games. Yes, Washington has played slightly better at home than they have on the road. They have a slight home advantage, but I don't think it's nearly enough of a home advantage to handle this UCLA team that's starting to figure it out. If you look at their last 10, UCLA is a top 50 team. Washington is moving outside of the top 100 recently. And if you look at how they step up in competition, this UCLA team plays much better against harder competition. This Washington team really hasn't really played well against good teams in general. So yeah, it's a travel spot for UCLA, and almost 1,000 miles of travel, but I don't think it's enough. It's the UCLA team traveled 800 miles to Oregon. They beat them outright. They traveled 400 miles to Arizona. They beat them outright. They did lose to New Mexico and Nebraska, but yeah, I think skill gap, this is just too big. Give me UCLA by 10. I typically don't love to take these home favorites in Big Ten or away favorites in Big Ten play, especially a UCLA team that kind of has been hit or miss. But I just think these two teams are on different levels, and it should be. I hate to use the word dog walk because every time I use it, the other team seems to win. But I think UCLA will dog walk them and beat them into submission. All right, and those are the 5 games that I like. are the 2 games that I love and the 3 games that I kind of like. Ohio money line, St. Joseph's on the +6.5 spread. St. Bonaventure on the underdog 12.5 point spread. Iowa -2.5 and UCLA -5. In terms of the other games, I haven't really looked at the earlier ones. Well, I have looked at them. I just don't really love them. But I slightly lean Toledo. I think they're a better team. Marquette, they're on my ban list, even though I do like them in this spot. I refuse to bet them. Model has LIU winning, but I think they're kind of fraudulent, especially on the road. I probably lean St. Francis. Mercyhurst, I also think they're super fraudulent. I think Wagner's going to probably roll them as short favorites. Stonehill probably beats this dog shit Chicago State team by 10 at least. But I don't love either of those teams. Central Connecticut's kind of been a wagon this year. Model has CCSU winning by 6.6. They are 6.5 favorites, so I'm not going to bet it. This Milwaukee team, I've never had any success betting them. They are the better team over Northern Kentucky, but it's kind of a regression spot. And Purdue, also on my ban list. Every time I bet them, they fucking collapse. So I probably look at a live bet on Michigan. If you want to bet that game, Purdue always comes out hot. Maybe take a Purdue first half spread. But I would just look, if you want to bet Michigan, I would just take a live bet. Because I think Michigan will probably get a double-digit line in the first half. So, yeah, that's everything for today. I will see you guys tomorrow.